Good evening. Welcome to another edition of NNPA and Black Press USA. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas. Tonight, I want to introduce you to a guest of mine. He's an artist. Some of you may already know him. His name is William Rhodes, and he's joining us from the West Coast. Williams, thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I am really, really appreciative of you taking time out. Now, I said that you are connecting with us tonight from the West Coast, but you're actually from the Maryland area, Baltimore, correct? Right? That's where you grew up?
Correct. Yes. Originally born and raised in Baltimore.
Now, reading over your bio as I do all of my wonderful guests, and your story is just really interesting. The things that you put in your bio that you were dealing with or what's going on in the times, ironically, 50 some years later, Baltimore's still dealing with those issues.
Absolutely.
It's really kind of shocking to see that in the bio of things that you talked about you were going through, and every day in news reports that I'm doing, these are the same stories.
I know it is. It is frightening that it has not changed in those 50 years. 50 some years.
50 some years, exactly. So let's start a little bit about your early years before you became the artist that you are today.
Yeah, I was, born and raised in Baltimore. My dad was involved in the civil rights movement, and so I had so many different people, coming through our home at the time that were part of the civil rights movement, really trying to, involved in really the change for improvement of the Black community. So I saw so many people pass through. And also as a child, I understood that there was a lot of social unrest that was happening around us. So I think that really had an influence on me. But the benefit was, although around me, the outside world had so much going on, at the same time, I had a strong family foundation. So was blessed to have great parents, great grandparents, and, et cetera. So it created a really strong foundation for me, which allowed me to, be creative.
Now, William, in any part of the country, I'm sure wanting to pick up a brush and be an artist is not like the coolest thing that people would think of, right? Even though we know as adults now, it is as cool. So were there any issues that led you to that, or have you always been that artsy kind of person? Because were you kind of quiet and then you started doing that to express yourself? How did you get into the arts?
No, that is a great question. So, I was the smallest in my neighborhood, and, my neighborhood had, some kind of tough guys, but I love sports. And so my thing was playing and having sport, participating in sports. A lot of times the sports would lead into fights. Okay. And I was an only child. So I dealt with a lot of issues of fights, bullying, lots of that constant. And so what I found was, by spending time producing art and creating art alone, that was my way of healing. Now, of course, I'm a child, so I'm not really thinking that I'm healing myself. But I remember creating characters, sports characters, martial artists, superheroes, producing these people, and I could be that superhero or that martial artist or that character in my art. So I could control my world and heal myself at the same time.
I can imagine that. So was there something, William, and I ask these, second and third layer questions because the things you talk about, again, like I said in your bio, they're happening to kids all across this country, even internationally, right? And whether you're Black or white, right? The
Right.
Nationality. So I'm hoping maybe a parent will hear something and tune into it. Did someone give you a brush? Did someone in class? Was it a teacher? Was it someone that said, here, why don't you try this? Or was it you just sketching on a piece of paper? Then it evolved into something else that parents can, I can imagine being able to, we did Barbies, right? So when we had our Barbies, we were special people, right? We got to do, we had the cars, the house. So I can imagine being able to literally dream up the world that you want.
Yeah, well, my dad was a huge influence. My dad was an artist, wanted to pursue art, but unfortunately he had to work and survive at that time, so he didn't pursue an art career. So yeah, so he encouraged me to do art. And then I had, art teachers, in school that would, I always found myself, art was my favorite subject. And I would go to class and it ended like that. It just seemed like it always ended so
Wow.
quickly because I was so into it. So that was really my encouragement that where led me in that direction.
And if I'm correct, you were accepted into Baltimore's their art school there, correct?
Correct. Baltimore School for the Arts.
What was that like?
It was a blessing. It was, for me, it was like winning the lottery. And I'm being honest. My zone school was a pretty tough school. And I knew that if I didn't get into Baltimore School for the Arts, I was going to really deal with some pretty rough stuff. And it was a school you had to audition to get in. So they only had a few slots. I had to present a portfolio, and I prayed and presented a portfolio and was one of the people picked, to be in that school at that time.
For people that are attending or are a part of Baltimore's School for Performing Arts, what would you like to say to them right now, knowing where you are now and what reprieve that school gave you and really propelled you to where you are?
I would say that, stay focused on what you have to do. Don't allow the pressure, because it was pressure. Don't
Okay.
allow the pressure and the, feeling as though you're overwhelmed. Don't allow that to push you off your course, because it's just a moment in time. If you are really passionate about your craft and whatever you do creatively, stick to that. Don't allow anyone to derail you. But understand that in the beginning, it's almost like boot camp. It may be rough in the beginning, but it creates a foundation for you later on as you go. So stay focused on that.
William, I attended a solo art gallery for a really up and coming young lady, Lindsay Adams. And art to me is someone seeing beauty is really in the individual eyes, right? So how do you prepare someone to be successful in this industry? Other people, doctors, lawyers, you go through the schools, you open up a practice or join a firm, but art is not like that, correct? How do you
No,
get
it's
to where
not.
you need to be? I know there's not one particular path, but can we talk about that? Because I know a lot of incredible artists out here and they're not where you are.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's two paths, and I know I don't want to get into a long conversation about it, but there are several paths you can take. You can take the traditional path where you go to a school, you create connections, and those connections can allow you to kind of connect with the right people, the
Mhm.
funders, the organizations, the residencies. Those can catapult you to the direction. But for me, it was more, I was blessed to be able to create a foundation. What I mean by that is, for me, it was important for me to have an art space. So I was able to get my first property. That created a foundation, because I know so many artists are in positions where they have to rent or have studio spaces. They create these beautiful things, and all of a sudden it gets pulled away from them.
Okay.
But I was really blessed. I got an old house. Didn't pay much for it. A lot of
Mhm.
people said I was crazy, but I was able to take that house and use that as a foundation, and I could create in it, and I had control over it. And then from there, I was able to have skills that allowed me to have income coming in. And
And
so oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. No, I want to finish that because I'm going to add on to that income question. But go ahead.
So it was important for me to have an income coming in, a steady income, because that gave me freedom to be able to produce what I want to do. Because I wasn't in a position where I had to make something to
Hmm.
sell or get to people, because to get people's approval, I knew I had money coming in, and then I could still produce my art and be as creative as inventive as I wanted to be. So my thing is, if you're an artist and you don't want to go that route where you have to follow the path of all of the, other things, it's important, get your foundation stable, get your income thing stable, whatever it is. If you got to get a job that will allow you to do your art, not suck it out of you, but get
Sure.
a foundation and get a space. Get a studio space, buy a place that you own, even if it's in a ratty community or whatever. You can make the beauty in that place, and you can lift it up.
I really like hearing, I'm the person who believes in owning the dirt. So that's really great hearing you as an artist saying own it. You're not saying rent it. There's nothing wrong with it, but you are encouraging ownership. I thought that, you being an artist was just the end of the story, but actually you were trained, you're a designer you make furniture too. Oh, well, you make furniture, right? So you went to the
Certainly.
University of Arts in Philadelphia, actually. You received a BA in joinery and furniture making, and then a Master of Fine Arts degree from the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, in sculpting furniture. I didn't even know that was a thing that you could do. Tell me a little bit about that. And are you doing any of that anymore?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was an amazing program. It was called the Artisanry Program at University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. It no longer exists. I hate to say that the program eventually got disbanded, but it was a wonderful moment in time. I was trained by master furniture makers and sculptural furniture makers. And to answer your question, yes, I do. So I still I'm a mixed media artist, so I work in so many mediums, but
Okay.
I always find my way back to making a piece of furniture. I don't know, it always creeps back in somehow. I've been making chairs lately, so it always finds its way back.
So you're telling me that a fan of yours, right, could have your painting on the wall and sitting on your furniture?
Hey man, that
That's
would be,
huge.
and that's the kind of fan I'm looking for. Yes,
That is huge.
absolutely.
That is huge because when people gravitate to an artist, it's I want to consume everything that this artist has. I want to bring up a couple of images that you showed with us. My producer's going to pull up, and then just tell us either what inspired you to create this or who we're looking at. All right, let's see the first image. Oh,
So this piece, again, I'm a mixed media artist, so I do all kinds of things. This piece is called Man, obviously, and it's based off of when I first really moved to the city. I started seeing, a large population of African Americans that were displaced or homeless,
mm,
and it didn't really understand the story. And so I literally would interview people. And this gentleman, when I met him, he was an interesting guy, lived on the street,
can
and
you
he
bring that
told
image
me,
back up for us, Norman? So the image that the
Mhm.
picture that was in there, that's the gentleman you're talking about.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
So this piece, I interviewed him, talked to him, and he shared his story. He was a war hero, and his name was Man. And I said, so okay, your name is Man, but what did your family call you, or what was your birth name? He said, I told you my name is Man. He said, my family named me Man because they were originally from the South, and they said, we never want you to have to experience being a person that they refer to as boy all the
Mm.
time. So this guy, although living on the streets, had so much dignity and respect for himself, but he ended up in a position where he was homeless. And so I produced this piece to really honor him. The image in the center is not him because he would not allow me to take a picture of him. But that is from a stack of old photographs, family photographs or images. I don't know who that person is, but it just felt like the most, fitting person for it. So that's a photograph printed on fabric, cotton, and I sewed it into the back of the piece. And the piece, the green kind of thing with writing on it, it looks, that's actually from a duffel bag from Vietnam. So that was an original, like, fabric swatch from Vietnam duffel bag. Because a lot of people in my family were military, ex-military. So I got that and incorporated that in. I built that case. It's made out of wood. I made it look old, and I included an American flag, which I, put embedded in the other side of it. So the whole piece talks about being a patriot, giving your life for the country, having dignity, but still ending up in positions sometimes where you
Mm.
could be on the outside or somehow living on the street, although you've done so much for your country.
That's a beautiful piece. Oh my goodness. I know you made this.
Yes, yes. This is a large piece, just to give people context. This
Okay.
piece is probably 5.5 feet long, so it's a pretty and
Wow.
pretty wide. So you can't use it as a comb, just to
Okay.
let you know,
That's
it's way too
that's a
big.
huge piece.
It is. It's carved wood, and I incorporated neon in it. And that gives tribute to my dad's generation, many of the Black men that were part of the whole civil rights and the whole Black movement, power movement of the 60s. You know,
Hmm.
really, there was a consciousness. And why the hair? The hair was so powerful during the 60s because even just wearing your hair natural, or just taking a stand. Sometimes guys will wear the Afro picks in their hair. That, and women too, that was a stand, really saying, hey, I am protesting just by being naturally myself, you know, and
And they're
that,
doing that today. They're doing that today. I mean, there was just a legislation that passed, barring it. I believe it was in California, where barring people from discriminating for someone wearing their natural hair. So
exactly.
again, we talked about what was going on when you were growing up, and seeing this come back around. You have to be, as an artist, because I think artists are just, they kind of not look down, but you're looking around at all times and seeing, what, we're still going through the same things. That's just interesting to see that your art is reflecting things. So I know people can connect to it no matter what age they are.
Yes, very good point. So
This is
this is a very powerful piece for me. So this is a quilt. So we're
okay.
talking 80 to 90 feet and 90 inches across. This is a pretty large piece. The images around the border are people from the community, African Americans from the community in San Francisco. But what makes this piece so powerful is I collaborated with Emory Douglas. Those of you that don't know who Emory Douglas is, was the minister of culture and the person that created all of the iconic artwork for the Black Panther Party movement of the 60s. So all of the stuff you see in those newspapers, articles, you think of Black Panther, Emory Douglas. So he was kind enough to work with me and allow me to use his images in several quilts. So that's just one of the iconic ones, all power to the people. And so that is on fabric sewn into into the quilt, and all of the portraits are hand painted. I did all of those, and they're on fabric squares. So everything was sewn together, and I had seniors do the sewing for me. So I don't do a lot of the sewing, but
I was
I do.
just going to ask you that. I'm like, wait, he does wood, he paints, and he sews.
No, I sew, but
Okay.
but I'd still be working on that quilt if I was sewing.
That is definitely that's a very special skill. My mother and my mother's mother did that. Now, what is that, a shoe?
It is. It's an actual shoe. This is a smaller piece. It's called Gone, and it's a piece based off of the interview. Again, I call it an interview, or I should say, conversation that I had with this beautiful lady I met. She was a homeless lady, and she told me her story about wanting to be a mother, about struggling to keep her house, keep everything going, and what that meant. And basically, she felt like her life's mission was to be a mom and be a supporter
Hmm.
of her family. She ended up homeless. And I went back to the location where she was, and I couldn't find her any longer. I haven't seen her in years, but there was a shoe. And so I took that shoe and incorporated that into this artwork. So it has photographs in the background, which I printed on fabric, sewed into the bottom of the shoe, so you
Oh,
could
I
kind of see
see
these
it
faces.
now. Oh, I thought I was seeing images. Okay.
Yeah, and that tag is a photograph which was sewn together. I did that, hand sewed, and made a tag to hang from the shoe. And the neon, I had help with that. I had some people in this wonderful glass studio in Atlanta that actually helped me do the neon, because I can do basic letters of neon, but when
Hmm.
you get into complicated letters like G's and E's and things like that, I need help. So I've worked in glass studios, neon studios in San Francisco, and also in Atlanta, Georgia. So I have to shout out them. They've helped me produce some amazing neon pieces.
your pieces have almost like a 3 dimension, like they're coming out, and you're looking at them, and then as soon as you're looking at one part, you notice another part of it. So where do you find your
Wow.
inspiration, and is there a reason why these are just two of the people that you're talking about, that there's a connection with you and the homeless, that you find art and beauty in that as well?
Yeah, I tend to, I guess, okay, starting off, being a person at an early age of feeling like an outsider, whether it be being bullied or whatever. I kind of have this feeling to know what it feels like not to fit in to traditional things. So when I see people on the streets or whatever, I understand and see how society kind of separates them from the world and isolates them. So I feel a connection because I feel like it doesn't take much for any of us to be in that position. It
Hmm.
could take just any horrible thing to happen and it could throw you completely off. So I feel this connection.
Now we cannot conclude our interview without talking about your amazing Bruce Lee exhibition in San Francisco. Now, I'm a big
Yeah.
karate fan. Many people don't know that. How did that come to be? And are you into karate? I mean, I know that's a form of art, but are you
Mhm.
into martial arts?
A long time ago, I did Taekwondo.
Yes.
But I
Okay.
didn't pursue it. I would not consider myself a really practitioner of the martial arts,
I
but I
like
have a
that.
love for it. And I've been surrounded around people my whole life that were heavily into it. Some were even friends of Bruce Lee at the time.
I
So,
could not imagine. I
my
would
dad,
just love that.
yeah.
Now you have a relationship with his daughter, right? You know his daughter?
Yes, Shannon Lee, who is wonderful. She has been extremely supportive. So I got invited to be a part of this exhibition from two curators. Their name is Melanie Melora Green. They're the Wonder Twins in San Francisco,
Okay.
and they invited me to be a part of this exhibition. And through them, I met Shannon Lee. And Shannon Lee produced this amazing show which commemorates her dad.
Hmm.
But the big part of this show, which I had to learn, is martial arts is really the catalyst for everything. It's not just about his fighting skills. People have to understand Bruce Lee had a philosophy of being inclusive for all people. And it was very important for him to see a diverse group of people practicing and loving this art form, which we call martial arts. So he wanted to bring in people. And so his first student was an African American student because he wanted to teach this traditional craft to other people outside of the Asian community.
So very special. You understand, if you know anything about Bruce Lee, I mean, he has such a huge following, and to see that there are opportunities and there are exhibits like that out there showcasing his work and his love for all people, which was relevant in his work. And you see in films, and when he did the few interviews that he would do, you could just tell that he was a person of peace and harmony and inclusiveness, like you just said. Where is this exhibition, and when will it be taking place?
So the exhibition is currently taking place. It's at the Chinese Historical Society of America Museum, which is it's in Chinatown in San Francisco, California. And I wish I could tell you their exact hours. I would suggest anyone listening, please
Yeah.
look them up and, you can get their hours. It's a beautiful exhibition. You have artifacts from Bruce Lee, his actual shirts and martial art
Oh
things he
my
produced.
gosh.
But then we work our way into actually the art, which was designed based on his life and his
Mm.
philosophies. So it's a combination of a lot of things. And it's in a beautiful historic building, which you walk in, you almost feel like you're in a Buddhist temple, a Chinese Buddhist temple. It has that feel to it in a way.
Now, what are you presenting within this exhibition?
So I do these things called knotted community quilts. So
Okay.
I looked at old, like I did when I was a child. I
Oh.
looked at old posters, martial art posters from back in the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So I produced my versions of them. I painted them on fabric. they were basically large canvases. And I took those and cut these little slats all along the sides. The slats allowed people of the community to then take little fabric squares, design them themselves, and we could tie them onto my original painting.
Oh, wow.
So when you see the centers, you see these old martial art posts. They look like movie posters. But then all of the community came together and they started adding their feelings and their thoughts about Bruce Lee and their connections. So it's growing. So it becomes this large art piece. And I had an example. There was an image that came up when we were talking of some of the quilts. I can show you what that process
Norman,
looks
can you
like.
bring up one of those quilts? Because I was going to ask you about, is this one
There,
of them?
yep, perfect, perfect. So that's an example. Now this is different. This was done for Key West,
Okay.
their community. This is called the Goombay Quilt. And again, that's a painting, a canvas painting in the center, but it allows for people in the community to add to it. So this currently is probably over 100 inches long. And it can grow. So if you can imagine, if people continue to add to that, it could be the size of a football field.
I like the fact that you're allowing people to who may not be artists to be a part of art. I mean, does that make sense? If I'm in that
Yeah.
community and I know I can do something that would be added to a piece of art that will be looked at for years to come, I feel connected to that person and to the community and to the project in and of itself.
Yes. Well put. Yes.
I love
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Now, I have to ask you, William, is there a online component to this? I know people are still doing it. Is there any way that if someone can't come out to, San Francisco to see this exhibition honoring the legacy of Bruce Lee, is there any way that they would be able to see some of the things there?
So there are three outlets where they
Okay.
could take a look at the work. You can go to, obviously, the Chinese Historical Society of America Museum. Go to their website, and it's called We Are Bruce Lee.
We are Bruce
Um,
Lee.
so if you go to that, click on that, they will have images and probably some video and things like that. Also, the African American Art and Culture Complex, which is in San Francisco, and I'll say it again, African American Art and Culture Complex. They have video and some documentation of We Are Bruce Lee. Or you can go to my Facebook page, and it's William Rhodes Art on Facebook. That's WILLIAMRHODESART, or my website, which is www.williamrhodesart.com. So I actually gave you four things.
It's okay.
So out of all of those, hopefully you will find something.
How can we as a community support you?
The community can support me with, so I'm a director of the intergenerational program at Dr. George W. Davis Senior Center, which it's a program that I developed, which brings together seniors and youth, and they do these amazing creative community projects. So to support me, if anyone would love to check out what we do, you could go to our website, or you can reach out to me, and we accept donations because it supports the program. So that would be amazing support. I also have a book out, and so you could purchase my book. All of that's on my Facebook and also on my website. So those are ways of support. But like I said, yeah. Mm-hmm.
William Rhodes, I have to thank you for your time and your information. And I'm going to be the first person that when we get off this interview that I will hop on after my next guest and see the exhibit. I just love Bruce Lee and anything that that they have about him. So I look forward to logging on and getting more information. And I do want to thank you for your wonderful art that you shared with us. Let us know when you're going to be back on the East Coast and any projects that you may be doing. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
Oh, yes, no problem. All right, so we're going to switch gears now. Thank William Rhodes for joining us tonight. And now we're going to switch gears and we're going to turn to our next guest. That's right, more than one. It is the Ladies of Distinction. They're up right here. Welcome, ladies. All right, continuing with serving the community, I said the top ladies of distinction. I'd now like to formally introduce you to Dr. Dawn Dilworth, and she's the president of the Top Ladies of Distinction for Prince George's County. Welcome to the program tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Taylor.
I appreciate that. So, we stream this program all over the world, all over the U.S. Many of us here in the DMV are familiar with what the Top Lady of Distinction, the organization is, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to share your mission with those who are not familiar with it.
Absolutely. So Top Ladies of Distinction is a national humanitarian service organization. And this organization was actually founded in 1964 down in Tyler, Texas. We have over 7,000 members and we have over 111 chapters. The Prince George's County chapter was actually started in 2009. Our chapter organizer is Lady Jacqueline Wilcher. And our mission is to step up and serve the residents of Prince George's County. And we do this through a number of different initiatives. And one of the biggest and most exciting initiatives that we have is a program called the Top Teens of America, whereby we encourage and take top teens and young people ages 13 through 19 and teach them how to be great citizens. We teach them about leadership skills, and we have lots of different facets that we focus on, Taylor.
So, Dr. Dilworth, what do you see as the need for the community that you serve, which is Prince George's County?
Well, there are so many different needs. I'm a little passionate when it comes to healthcare, and that is a big need in our community. Just access to healthcare, access to quality healthcare, knowing your healthcare rights, but also just working with our senior citizens and helping them to continue to be happy and productive citizens, in our community, making sure that we are advocating for the rights of Prince Georgians, doing that through legislative action, making sure that we are stepping up for our children and just teaching them how to be great, productive citizens. There's so many needs that we have in our county, even down to things such as that we may not think about, such as food insecurity. We see this as a very wealthy county, but if we look at people as individuals and if we look at households as individuals, there are many, many different needs and challenges that face the residents of Prince George's County. And the Top Ladies, we are there to try to fill in the gap and help out with those needs.
And I'm sure that state and county organizations really appreciate the work that you and your organization have been putting in. As it pertains to your organization for 2022, what are some of the goals that you guys are after as far as this is what we want to do this year?
Well, we have a very big initiative. One of our big initiatives is to bring awareness to sickle cell disease. As you probably know, sickle cell disease is a disease that it doesn't discriminate, but it does disproportionately affect the African American community. So we have been down in Annapolis trying to help change legislation as it pertains to sickle cell disease awareness. Another big push of ours is this whole voter registration, which I know is important nationally, but we have a voice. We want to make sure we exercise that voice, and we want the residents of Prince George's County to understand that voting goes beyond just those big elections that we all get out there and stand in line for. We want to make sure we are getting out there and engaging our civic duty when it comes to the midterm elections. And those are some of our bigger pushes. And like I said, any way that residents of Prince George's County feel that they need help, we want to be there to stand in the gap.
So as it pertains to the state of Maryland or Prince George's County with sickle cell, what's lacking as far as what you feel is lacking and that you're going to Annapolis at the State House and trying to push for changes?
Well, I can tell you what is lacking is research and funding. And that is beyond Prince George's County. That is probably nationwide. When you look at sickle cell disease compared to some other chronic diseases that probably affect a much smaller population, some of those diseases have much more funding, have much more national awareness, and they really are working towards a cure. We're just not seeing that to the same degree with sickle cell disease. And there are many theories behind why, but we do want to make sure that we are out there and advocating for that because it really does disproportionately affect people of color.
Would you tell us what sickle cell is and how it affects the body?
Absolutely. So sickle cell disease is a disease of our red blood cells. And the importance of red blood cells is that they carry oxygen throughout our body, and the tissues need oxygen to function properly. So a person who has sickle cell disease has red blood cells that are not nice and round like they should be, but they truly are, which is like a crescent moon. So
Oh,
if you have a cell that is sickled, it can't carry as much oxygen as a nice round cell. So as a result, the tissues don't receive as much oxygen, and we can have crises that happen from not getting enough oxygen. So think about the brain not getting enough oxygen. That can lead to strokes. The heart not getting enough oxygen can potentially lead to heart attacks. And if other organs don't get enough oxygen, they can die off. And so that is what sickle cell disease is, kind of in a, kind of, I toned it down just a little bit, but that's really what sickle cell is all about. And interestingly enough, sickle cells began as a result of a lot of malaria in Africa. Sickle cells are not as affected by malaria as regular cells are.
hmm.
However, when two individuals who have some sickle cells mate, they have the ability to have a child who has all sickle cells. And that's really where the problem comes from.
Wow. How has the response been with lawmakers in support of what you see needs to happen?
It has been fantastic. We really made some fantastic connections when we were a part of the contingent in Annapolis. At least in our county and our state, I should say, with our lawmakers, I think that there really is a big push to bring sickle cell disease awareness to the forefront, and that they really are thinking about laws and legislation that can be passed so that we can move the needle forward as it pertains to sickle cell disease.
That's really interesting to hear that. I do have people that I know that their child has sickle cell. They had another child and they were able to get the stem cells to be able to help their other child, which is definitely a blessing. It doesn't always happen that way. I'm sure you know that.
Yes, it is a blessing, and it is innovation such as that. Because I can tell you, when I was much younger,
Mhm.
even when I was a medical student, that technology just did not exist.
Mhm.
And so now, young people, there are some young people who can actually be cured from sickle cell from those stem cell transplants. So we want to keep pushing and pushing that agenda so that we can find more ways to treat sickle cell, so that we can find ways to treat adults with sickle cell, and hopefully one day we can just eliminate it altogether.
Now, is there testing or do you get sick and then you get tested? Are there signs that then prompt doctors to test you? How does that work?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the fastest ways, or one of the most important ways that we test for sickle cell, is kind of in my field, OBGYN. So
Oh,
if a lady is pregnant, that should be part of her screening panel to see, does she have sickle cell? She probably would already know if she had disease, but what a lot of people don't know is if they have sickle cell trait, because sickle cell trait is very silent, and sickle cell trait is not a problem. So we test our pregnant moms to see if they have sickle cell trait. And if they have sickle cell trait, we ask their partner to be tested.
okay.
And if the partner and the mom both have sickle cell trait, they have a 25% chance of having an offspring with sickle cell disease. So we can do further testing, or we can send them for further testing. But that's really where the testing comes into play during prenatal care. Outside of that, most people just aren't getting tested for sickle cell disease.
So at that point, does the mother and father have to decide, do we continue? Do we not? Is that often the case or no? I mean, I'm sure the decision is different for everyone, but is that at the point that you talk to them and let them know what this could mean for their child?
Well, we do talk to them. And like I said, whenever you have a mom and a dad who both have sickle cell trait, statistically, there's a 25% chance that they will have a child with full-blown sickle cell disease. So what we do for all parents who fall into that category, we send them for genetic counseling, in which case the counselor will talk to them about the risks. They will talk to them about, what it means to have a child with sickle cell disease, and we'll offer them the option to have some further testing, because we are now in a place where we can actually find out prenatally if this baby will have sickle cell disease or not. So that's kind of the next steps. And then parents are given options to decide what they'd like to do in the future with their pregnancy, or what they'd like to do with future pregnancies.
Wow. Now, we talked before, Dr. Dilworth, your organization, Top Ladies of Distinction, the Prince George's County chapter. You really do a lot as it pertains to health in this community. In fact, there's a mental health community discussion earlier this week. And can you tell us a little bit about that discussion?
Sure thing. So on Tuesday, May 3rd, we had a mental health community discussion. And we had this discussion with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, commonly known as NAMI, and the Prince George's County Coalition of 100 Black Men. And that discussion was just talking about the taboos in mental health. As you may be aware, mental health discussions don't always come freely in the African American community. There has been a big taboo. And so we had this panel of men, which is really great as well, because it also is a big taboo in the male community. So we had a panel of Black men just talking to us and talking to the community about mental health, what it means to seek counseling, what it means to get help, and just how it really is a good thing to be in touch with your mental health. And it's not a bad thing to ask for help, to get counseling. And sometimes if the need arises, to even use medications if you had to for mental health. So that was the first part of our mental health series. But we have a whole month-long activities for Mental Health Awareness Month.
You know, when you speak of mental health, I think health as it pertains to the Black community, you're right, even for male or females, but definitely for a Black male. Do you think it helps or has helped to see the number of Black celebrities that have come out, male and female, to share their story of them going through things that they define as mental illness?
I do think that has made a tremendous difference, you know, in our community for varying reasons. You know, a lot of us were told that what happens in your home stays in your home. That, you know, because we've always had to be a people who were strong, at least here we are strong, but definitely had to show strength. Talking about mental health or having mental health issues were seen as weakness, you know, seen as an area of weakness, and you didn't want to portray that. You didn't want people to see you as weak. And so as a result, we've kept a lot of that in. So I do think we are breaking down those barriers. And a lot of times it does start with seeing people who look like us, who have a lot more power and influence, that they're going through these things and that they are willing to share. I do think we still have a long way to go, but I think that has made a tremendous difference to have that happen. And that's what we were trying to do with this panel.
You know, I had the opportunity of interviewing one of Prince George's County owned Taraji P. Henson, and her talking about the mental health issues that she's dealt with, and being so candid. I didn't even expect her to come out and express what she had been expressing, and just the number, if you go and look on her social media, of people pouring into her and saying me too and this and that. So I do think it is really helpful, and I commend anyone who chooses, whether you're a celebrity or not, to share your story, because you're always, no matter who you are, you're always in fear that someone could judge you. And so it's great.
This is very similar. They're not the same, but in terms of just how things are perceived. And as you said, once you hear about other people trying to come out the woodworks, it's kind of like the Me Too movement. When you start to talk about it, you know, a lot of us have had that experience, and now we feel more comfortable saying, hey, you know, me too. And that's what we're really trying to have happen in the African American community as it comes to mental health. Our mental health impacts everything else we do, from our work to being good parents to feeling good about ourselves. And we have to take care of our mental health in the same way that we would take care of our diabetes, we take care of our hypertension. You know, we have to take care of that brain. Mental health is equally as important.
I wonder if you feel if COVID kind of elevated or escalated matters that maybe already that was bubbling at the surface or right there on the line, and then being shut in your home for 2.5 years, which America has never dealt with. It just really brought everything to the forefront. I mean, at that point, you had nothing else to do but look at your surrounding, right? Do you think at all that has really made people reflect on things and realize maybe I do need to talk to somebody, or I am feeling this way?
Well, I think it has done a lot of things. One, it gave a lot of time for introspection because we are very social.
Yeah.
As a person, as a community, we're very social, and so you could not do that in the same way. So it gave a lot of time for introspection, but it also gave a lot of time to, like you said, get in touch with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It gave a lot of time for you to think. And it did bring a lot of stressors forward for a lot of people because being home was stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Job loss was stressful. Our economy changed, which was stressful. Just dealing with COVID. And just the fact that a lot of people lost loved ones or had to lose touch with loved ones because there was a time period where your family member may go to the hospital and you can't go with them and you may never see them again. So there were so many stressful things that happened during COVID. But there's also so much time to reflect on that. And I think it was kind of a perfect storm to talk about mental health and really push that agenda forward. I really do.
You talked about stressors. You actually had a part 2 of your mental health with kids, dealing with the issue of stressors and helping them to manage it.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So first, let me start by saying one thing that the Top Ladies of Distinction does, and we do very well, and I'm extremely proud of, is we have a teen program called Top Teens of America. Every chapter in the nation sponsors a Top Teens of America program. And in that program, we have teenagers from ages 13 to 19, and we teach them a lot of life skills. Their motto is participation is our foundation as leaders of tomorrow. So we teach them a tremendous amount of life skills. And so one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to hear from them about their stressors during this pandemic and even beyond. So we had a panel discussion called Teen Talk, Tips for Managing Daily Stressors. And we did this with some counseling services that are in Prince George's County. And we had some of our teens are very articulate. They're very smart, they're very intelligent, and they will talk to you about what they're feeling, what they've experienced. And so we wanted to hear from them, and we wanted to also have them tell us how we can help them and have them strategize. And some of them gave us really good strategies about what they've done and what they're doing. So that was our part 2 of that discussion.
Now you also have something, because you actually your organization for the month of May through the 21st, you have lots of health related issues. So you have something, Move Better, Live Better, Community Health Services. Talk to me a little bit about that Move Better, Live Better campaign.
So we decided, as we were brainstorming, what are we going to do for Mental Health Awareness Month? I must give props to her. Name is Lady Maria James. This was her brainchild because in the past, before pandemic, we had an actual in-person health fair. And so we figured, how will we pivot to do a health fair kind of virtually? And so she came up with this idea of this Live Better, Move Better, Think Better, which was kind of a 3-prong. And so we kind of found some activities that fit into all of those categories. So this month we will have chair yoga, we will have Zumba, and we've been able to do those things virtually.
Did you say chair yoga?
Chair yoga, yes. Chair yoga.
I've never heard of that. Okay. All right.
Chair yoga. You got to check it out.
I have to.
We're doing them on Zoom, but we're also doing them on Facebook Live. We have had, as you said, we've had the discussions. We have a food drive. So we are working with the Capital Area Food Bank to do a food drive. And believe it or not, Taylor, what we rolled into all of this, going back to one of the things I said at the beginning, voter registration. So we'll be handing out swag bags at the end of the month for those who are coming to get food from the Capital Area Food Bank. And we have a little card in there with a little QR code that you can scan to get connected and make sure you sign up and be prepared for voting this year.
Now, Dr. Dilworth, so you're actually doing a food distribution, right? So you're not asking for canned goods.
No, we're not asking. We're distributing. We are not asking for food.
That's a big deal, Dr. Dilworth, because I think people, okay, so let's just put it on the table. We know that Prince George's County everywhere is touted as one of the most affluent African-American communities in America. And you would think that that wouldn't be an issue, but we know that there are a number of professionals that are living and choosing to pay their mortgage, pay their medicine versus eating.
Yes.
And it's a really big deal to be able to provide for those families that are working. You know, people say, get a job. Well, they are working. It's just not enough to take care of the things that they need to have, whether it's medicine or food. And especially the elderly, they're choosing food sometimes over the medicine or vice versa. So it's life-changing that you're able to do the distribution. Where can, is there a location? Do you have to register for the distribution?
We are working with the Capital Area Food Bank for that.
Okay.
And that will be on May 21st. I'm going to get the exact details for you. You do not have to register for that. You can just drive up and you can pick up food. It's going to be at the University of Maryland Capital Region Health. So the new hospital in Prince George's County.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous hospital. I think we may have a flyer that I'm going to see if the producer's there. I think it's a lavender color, a pink flyer that we can pop up that shows that distribution. It has some other dates on there as well.
Yes, it does.
For the month of May. So, you know, where can people go to get more information about this chapter's organization, the Prince George's County chapter? And then I want to ask you, where can people go? Maybe they want to start this chapter in their community.
Sure thing. Well, those are two great questions. So we are all over social media. One of the best places to find us is on our website, and that's at www.tlodpgcc.org. And from there, you can get connected to all of our activities. We keep a scrolling calendar of events that are coming up, our public events. And you can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook for those who are still using Facebook. And it's a great question. Interesting that you should ask about starting a chapter. I also work on the membership committee. I'm the area membership co-chair. So we're always looking to expand. We're considered, our region, we call them areas, is Area 2. So we are all the way from Maine down to Virginia. But this organization is nationwide. So if anyone has any interest in joining a chapter and they don't live in the DMV, or if they live outside of Maryland, Virginia, and they're interested in connecting with the chapter, or if you live in a place maybe like Vermont, Delaware, where we don't have chapters and you want to start one, call me. Just reach out to me. You can connect with us on our webpage. Again, that's www.tlodpgcc.org.
Dr. Dilworth, what are the requirements to be a member?
Well, one of the main requirements is a heart for service. It really is. A heart for service and a desire to work with teens, because as I said, our teens are our number one focus. So those are probably the two biggest requirements. Of course, you know, there is a financial obligation to join, but that's really it. We ask that you have a heart for service and that you want to work with teens.
Can you tell us, for your particular chapter, the Prince George's chapter, what the members are made of? For example, you're an OBGYN. What are the other members made of?
Sure. Well, we are a diverse group of women. We have teachers. We have lawyers. We have a lot of ladies who work for the federal government. We have ladies who are in finance. We have some professional fundraisers. We have some stay-at-home moms. We have just a tremendous, diverse group of women in our chapter, which really makes the work light. So we have women who are connected to media and can reach out and make things like this happen for us. We have women who are very good with PR. We have some women who are fantastic in their day jobs. That's what they do. They do public relations. We just have a lot of women. We have a lot of talent in the Prince George's County chapter.
I love hearing that. Let's see if our producer can pull up that flyer that shows the distribution. I think it shows some other events that are happening for the month of May, Mental Health Awareness Month. There we go. Yes. So yeah, you can see the drive. They have May 3rd and May 7th, and then May 15th and May 17th, and May 21st is the big drive-by community food distribution, which is pretty exciting. And in fact, since we have this up, you see that QR code. If you can put that back up, you see that QR code right now. If you put your camera up to it, you can get all the information. So there you go. I love QR codes.
I do
too. QR codes. So I don't want to stop because you've mentioned this several times, and I think it's so important. Dr. Dilworth, we take a few minutes. I know we've got about 5 minutes left to really talk about your voter registration initiative, because I think you're so right. There's that big rally when there's the presidential, but so many things people have to understand. If you get them in your court cases, your local appellate level, and then you can, the White House, that's important too. But you got to remember home, because the two of them talk. We send them to the Congress to represent what it is that we want. We can't just wait to the very end and just leave it on the president, because as you can see, the president doesn't make all the decisions. It's the people that choose.
And I think that is an area that people that's an education piece that people are learning. Not only does the president not make all the decisions, the president probably doesn't he makes decisions, but a lot of decisions that impact us immediately happen right here. Whether you have trash pickup twice a week in your community or once a week in your community, that's important to me as a homeowner. And that's not, my president's not going to be able to help me with that. That's going to be my local politicians. So we have to start thinking locally before we continue to think globally. Global is important, but it starts at home. So we are really pushing and just, making sure that our community is aware of the candidates, that they really do know the issues. And we want to hear from our community about what are the issues that are important to you, what's important in your neighborhood, and how can we get you connected to the people who can help you with that. And most of that does start by voting locally.
Yeah, and it's really, really important. People have to understand, when you hear presidents issuing executive orders, it's only while they're in office. So it's not a law. There's a big difference. And there's a lot. We've learned a lot in the last, honestly, 8 to 16 years about things, because it's happening in real life. So do you have any upcoming voter registrations? Can people go to your website to get more information?
They can go to our website to get more information. And on the vein of QR codes, we have a QR code there. And that's really geared toward the residents of Prince George's County, so that you can find where your polling places are, so that it connects you to how to make sure that you are registered to vote. We will be passing out voter registration information on the when we are doing the food distribution. But you can find out more information, again, by going to our website about voter registration, at least here in Prince George's County, Maryland.
Now, your community health series, is there anything that I missed about that? Do we cover everything that you have in that community health series?
We covered everything. We did the mental health panels, the yoga, the Zumba, as well as the food distribution. That is the end of our Mental Health Awareness Month. So we are taking the entire month. And this is a new format for us. Again, we have done, the one day retouching the community, but we wanted to make sure we did a whole month long of activities. So if you can't attend one, you can come see us somewhere else, and just make sure that you are fully immersed this month in self-care and mental health awareness.
And I love this. So if you've got a mom, dad, or aunt, you can do it virtually from home, and then you can do it with them while they're doing. I think that's so great. I'm telling you, the virtual, I know the kids are burnt out from doing it in school, but it really allows people who do not have the mobility to still connect with people. And as you said, Dr. Dilworth, we are people that like to be connected and talking and in contact. So I have to thank you and the top ladies of distinction in Prince George's County for coming on the show tonight to talk to us about your organization and all the health-related issues you have for the month of May. Again, before we close out, how can they get more information?
Sure thing. You can go to our website, www.tlodpgcc.org. And we thank you, too, for what you're doing in Prince George's County as well.
Thank you, Dr. Dilworth. All right, well, that is it. I can't believe so much time has went by so quickly. I love it. Top Ladies of Distinction. Oh, wonderful organization. I had no idea there were so many chapters. So so thank you so much for all the informative information you gave us. Everyone, we've reached the end of the show. Until next week, God bless and goodbye.
Goodbye. Good night.